AskReddit asks, what are some declassified government documents that are surprisingly terrifying?
Project Sunshine, where the US government bought remains of dead infants to test for radiation. When they took limbs from them, the parents were never told. One mother wasn't allowed to dress her daughter for her funeral, because doctors had removed her legs, and didn't want her to find out.
Is anyone else ridiculously disturbed that they named that Project Sunshine? Question mark. What the fuck?
Jeffrey Dahmer's full confession, a couple of 100 pages of pure madness. Necrophilia, dismemberment, skinning, lobotomy, body part preservation, cannibalism. Dahmer became pretty close to his interrogating detectives Dennis Murphy and Patrick Kennedy, and provided a lot of detail to them. A lot of it in a pretty candid, offhand manner.
After the My Lai massacre, killing of around 400 to 500 innocent civilians in Vietnam after an army troop killed an entire village, the U.S. government established a group to investigate other war crimes like this occurring in Vietnam, the Vietnam War Crimes Working Group. They found 28 massacres of equal or greater magnitude than My Lai that the public was unaware of, so literally thousands of innocent people killed by U.S. soldiers. The information has since been reclassified, but there were several journal articles on it when it was first released.
I took a military ethics class hosted by a professor who spent many years in Vietnam as a Marine captain. He personally experienced a colonel who operated with a doctrine called, count the meat. Basically, the success of an operation was dependent upon how many bodies it made.
Operation Midnight Climax. Government hired sex workers to dose Johns with LSD for research purposes, so to speak. https n wikipedia.org/wiki/operation_midnight_climax https n wikipedia.org/wiki/operation_midnight_climax closing parenthesis.
Threat level midnight.
Blurring the line between comedy and insanity.
CIA involvement in starting the Guatemalan Civil War, which lasted 36 years and led to the genocide of hundreds of thousands of indigenous people. www.chia.gov/library/readingroom/collection/Guatemala.
One U.S. bomber accidentally dropped a nuclear bomb a short distance from a major U.S. city, can't remember which, but luckily it didn't detonate. There was also the Broken Arrow near Goldsboro, NC. 2 bombs dropped. One never recovered. Wiki 1961 Broken Arrow near Goldsboro, NC. https en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/1961_Goldsboro_B-52_ closing parenthesis.
Off the coast of Georgia. They still haven't found it.
My hometown was littered with radioactive waste by the federal government as part of the Manhattan Project. www.nytimes.com/1981/02/1/nyregion/big-atom-waste-cited-reported-found-near-Buffalo. HTML. Then we wonder why cancer and thyroid conditions there are the norm.
Is anyone else ridiculously disturbed that they named that Project Sunshine? Question mark. What the fuck?
The German radar guidance system, WOTAN, was a great example on why your project operation names should have nothing to do with the content. ELI-5.
Dahmer should have been prosecuted for what he did in the army. Source: https www.independent. Co. UK, News World, America's, Soldiers' Sexual Abuse and the Serial Killer. The US Military's Secret Sexual Assault Sate 679271. HTML. For Capshaw, it began the day he and Dahmer, an army medic, were put into a room together. The assaults began at once and, eventually, he leapt from the third-floor window to escape. I had probably been raped 8 to 10 times. I don't know. He was tying me to the bunk with motor pull rope. He took all my clothing from me. He would either beat me before he raped me or he would beat me after.
I had no idea that he did well in the army. The most horrifying thing is that he was never punished for it and that this monster ruined so many people. Before he started his rampage of destroying men. What a horrible human.
There are over 50 mishaps with nuclear weapons by the U.S. Air Force in the 1950s alone.
Removed. Lol, we had a plane arrive in Barksdale carrying a live nuke and nobody knew how it got on the plane. Oh, Air Force.
Even scarier is that we don't know how many nukes the Soviet Union outright lost.
The Department of Health and Human Services practiced female sterilization on Native American women all the way through the 1970s. Kinda sobering knowing that we were using tax dollars to suppress indigenous birth rates less than 50 years ago. en.wikipedia.org/wiki/sterilization_of_native_american_women.
In East Germany, a committed freedom fighter and her husband had dealt with having her home raided while she was away. Being arrested on the way to protests and all sorts of state-sponsored harassment. After the wall fell, she was able to read the documents the Stasi had kept on her and found out her own husband was an undercover agent and had written many reports on her activities with a bloodless banality.
British Metropolitan Police Services have done exactly the same on ecological protesters from organisations like Greenpeace. There was literally a case a few years back, like 5 years ago. An undercover cop, I believe, married. And even had kids with a protester he was investigating the whole way through.
Operation Northwoods, a plan for a false flag operation that came from the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Department of Defense in 1962 and given to JFK, who turned it down. The plan called for the CIA to commit terrorist actions against U.S. civilians across the United States and frame Cuba, allowing us the right to invade and depose Castro and the communist government there. It was declassified and can be found online at the JFK Library. Terrifying that no one knows or seems to care that this was suggested by our government to the president.
CIA invested millions in trying to make cat spies.
$20 million to be precise.
Know why it didn't work? Test number 1. Their very first spy cat ever ran into the street and was hit by a car. They decided to not continue.
As a part of the Army and CIA's experiments into mind control. They put electrodes into the pleasure centers of dogs' brains. Initially, they wanted hundreds of dogs. They only actually got 10. And of those only a few were implanted. The ones which would be remote controlled by zapping them and essentially giving them a dose of dopamine when they were facing the right direction. The controllers would stop the dope zap when they wanted the dogs to stop. And then the dogs would reorient themselves until they were facing the correct direction. This meant when the controllers weren't present, the dogs who had been implanted would continually spin in circles, even in their cages, always looking for the direction that gave them that next hit. The program ran out of funding in the mid-60s, and the dogs were destroyed. If you want to read all about it and other things that the US and governments around the world are up to from the horse's mouth, I highly recommend theblackvo.com. https www.theblackvo.com/documentarchive/closing parenthesis. The website of Blackvo. Here's 100-ish pages of what I described above. Helpfully feared and archived thanks to his hard work. Documents 2. theblackvo.com/documents/tich/addo4673555. PDF edit for some bright side. Via the same source we get remote control of war dogs, remotely controlled scout dog. June 1974. Wherein we learn that we can just train dogs. They respond to audio and visual cues, and can be trained to turn on command at long distances by playing a tone over the radio. Documents 2. theblackvo.com/documents/tich/785508. PDF.
My previous answer to another post. https www.theblackvo.com/closing_opening parenthesis https://. www.theblackvo.com/closing parenthesis. Not sure if this has been mentioned or not, I'm not scrolling through a million replies. The site is run by a guy named John Greenwald, Blackvo, https www.reddit.com/u/blacko/closing parenthesis started putting in FOIA requests when he was 15 and never stopped. Currently has what is arguably the largest privately owned collection of declassified information from the U.S. government anywhere. And the entire archive is accessible for free. Not a direct answer to your question, but anything you want to know about stuff the US government was up to can be found buried in there, and he's taken the time to sort some of the more interesting stuff out to make browsing easier. Cheers!
When the Space Shuttle Challenger was destroyed, it was reported that all 7 astronauts were killed instantly. It was revealed decades later that some, if not all of the astronauts survived the initial explosion, as the cockpit cabin had enough protection to not be breached. For 2 minutes and 45 seconds, they were awake and aware, as they plummeted toward the Atlantic Ocean. Understandably, NASA knew that the news of their terrifying death would have crippled the space program even more than it already was.
We looked at this in flight school and pretty much, there's evidence to support that the crew was still running their procedures even after it was obvious shit hit the fan. They didn't die accepting their fate. They died astronauts. That's something to be admired, IMO.
Probably the same way that sexual assaults go unpunished in the military even though it's pushing 20% in the Marines.
Yeah, it's almost as if mandatory slideshow safety briefs are ineffective.
And that's mild compared to the Air Force. Edit. After convening with members from other branches, it appears that every branch of the military reports numbers of occurrences, but will fudge the numbers of another branch, in order to point the finger and make themselves look better.
Not declassified documents, but the discovery of the Tuskegee syphilis study on unwitting black American males was pretty fucking horrific. www.cdc.gov/Tuskegee/timeline. HTM. The study was conducted without the benefit of patients' informed consent.
New Zealand's UFO Files, https. Natlib Primo. Hosted. xlibrisgroup.com/primo-explore/full display. Vid equals NLNZ and Dosset equals NLNZ_ALMA 21215500410002836 and context equals L and search_scope equals NLNZ are a bit creepy. I was in the library and stumbled across the bound files. There's a lot of assumed crazy people being crazy, but there's also one specific one that stood out from respectable Air Force pilots who were both in the air. Conducted mini tests, e.g. blinking, moving the plane in relation to the object, verifying what he saw with the co-pilot, ensure it wasn't an illusion or his mind. I don't know, just the fact that you'd assume he wasn't crazy creeps me out so much.
NZ is not real. Foo Fighters.
MKUltra. Partially illegal. Forced mind control experiments utilizing psychoactive drugs. Conducted by the CIA in 1950s, 60s.
More specifically, the death of Frank Olson. Olson was going to expose Project MKUltra. Olson was a CIA employee who was dosed with LSD by his supervisor and then committed suicide 9 days later by jumping out of his hotel window. After an autopsy, there was some evidence found that he was unconscious when he plunged out of the window. en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/Frank_Olson.
Possibly created the Unabomber.
The dogs were destroyed.
This isn't any different than what happens to animals in experiments today, sadly. They cut them open and look inside to make sure they are okay. Why do they always say, destroyed? It's the same here in the UK when a dog has harmed a child or something. Why not put down, or simply, killed? Destroyed sounds like they were lined up against a wall and taken out by an Apache helicopter.
Were the destroyed dogs okay?
Two things come to Mindy think they're called the Pentagon Papers. They detail how America went into Vietnam with no intention of winning. Rather to control China in that part. If the world know creepy but potentially creepy is the JFK assassination papers that get released in October. I'm looking forward to that day. Edit. Spelling.
I thought the bulk of those were released 2 years ago. And no one cared.
I took a military ethics class hosted by a professor who spent many years in Vietnam as a Marine captain. He personally experienced a colonel who operated with a doctrine called, count the meat. Basically, the success of an operation was dependent upon how many bodies it made.
The sad thing is that is how the Vietnam War worked. America was operating on a strategy of attempting to kill as many VC and NBA as possible, rather than to secure ground and capture territory like in previous wars. Working under the assumption that if they killed them all, there wouldn't be an insurgency anymore.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to support the channel, and above all, have an excellent day you incredible people.